We're on Get It Raw. We have Matt Parks with us today. Matt Parks is a business owner for a CBD oil company. Matt, go ahead and give us a little bit of information about yourself, if you don't mind.
Sure. Um, so my name is Matt Parks. Actually originally from Baltimore, Maryland. Born and raised there. Um, so big Ravens, Orioles fan. Grew up mid '80s, so Northeast Baltimore City, ghetto boy, as they commonly refer to me. Um, I went to college in Nashville, Tennessee, at Belmont University. Played baseball there. Got a degree in business, and then got a master's degree in sport administration. And I worked for Ripken Baseball, specifically Ripken Senior Foundation, for 2 years, and then moved to Nashville with my wife, and have been running her family's medical supply business for the past, 11 years. And it was through that past 11 years being in healthcare and dealing specifically with patients that I found a common denominator of an underlying issue with most people was inflammation. And so you start hearing some rumblings about CBD about 2016, 2017. You start hearing it come up more and more and more. CBD's coming. It's going to be this magical cure-all. It's going to fix everything. You see all these products coming out on the market. And I knew people were going to start asking our medical supply store to carry it. And the more products I got in to sample, the more I was underwhelmed by what was being put out on the market. And the more research I did, I decided, let's see if we can do, especially in a topical sense, let's see if we can do this better. Because to me, the ingredients there was no imagination, there was no science. It was take a base hand cream, throw in some CBD, and call it a pain reliever. And it just, to me, it wasn't adding up. I had so many people who told me, hey, I took this, it just really didn't do much. I didn't like the way it felt on my skin. I didn't like the smell. I mean, it was, and then the questions came, is this going to get me high? Am I going to fail a drug test? It seemed like there was more questions than answers. And so it led me to kind of a 2-year journey of, I think we could do this better. I think there's so many things we still don't know about CBD, and it's a tough industry for a lot of people. And there's so much, like I said, misinformation. And there's a lot of bad actors because there's just not enough regulation out there. So that's really what led me to develop this product, this formula. We
Yeah,
started.
what's the name of the business, if you don't mind?
Yeah, so it's one less CBD, and the concept comes from helping people take one less pill.
Nice.
That comes from kind of my own personal battle with taking anti-inflammatories, during my baseball career on a daily basis, 800 to 1,000 milligrams of ibuprofen every single day just to function and to play at a high level. And, the more research we do about that and people who just take copious amounts of OTC medications, what that can do to, our stomach linings, internal bleeding, it just led me to think, okay, there's a great ingredient out there that we can utilize, but it's not being done properly, in my opinion, and it's just fallen into this mass market, over marketing, overhype area where there's just a lot of inferior products, in my opinion, that are out there. So we chose to make one product, do it really well, make it safe, make it effective, and make it something that people wanted to apply every day. And if I can take people from pain scale of an 8 to a 9 every day down to a 3 or a 4, then I think we've done our job, and we've helped people reduce their dependence on whether it's Aleve, ibuprofen, or even at a high level prescription opioids. People know, it's pretty common knowledge now that we have an opioid epidemic in this country.
Yeah,
And
I'd agree.
if there's
Y-
something that we could do to curb that, then I'm all for it.
Speaking as a clinician,
Hmm.
both of us, the numeric pain rating scale is what you're referring to, as far as
Hmm.
like 0 out of 10. And I don't know if you're aware of the MCID. The MCID stands for minimal clinical important difference.
Okay.
what that does is the reason why this is important when you're talking about it from a research perspective is
Hmm.
that when you change 2 points on that scale, so if you have somebody come in with, say, a pain level of 7, all right, if
Right.
you treat them or give them something and their pain increases by 2 points or decreases by 2 points, you have made a relevant change in that person's life.
Exactly.
Exactly, and it's stronger than any statistical change that we can otherwise describe in the research. So
Hmm.
if you're taking somebody from an 8, 9 down to a 3 or 4, you are providing a substantial service.
Hmm.
But can you speak to your knowledge of the cannabinoid system and of the why CBD is so why you think it's so revolutionary and
Hmm.
why your product is possibly superior than other products? Well, how are you getting it right?
Sure. The biggest thing for me, and we still don't know, and when we get to a scientific perspective on this, and we took 2 years on this formulation to get it right. And it was about 21 different batches of figuring out, okay, we need a little bit more of this, a little bit less of that. And if you, it's kind of like Coke, Coca Cola. There's a secret there's a secret formula out there. Nobody knows exactly what it is. But I
I thought you
could
were
give,
talking about the other thing.
oh, no, no, not cocaine. No, no, I don't advise that. But
No.
the there's about 28 elements that make our product, and it comes down to like the 0.67% of this, 1.2% of this, just to get it right. The precision that it requires to make an effective product really blew my mind when I started getting into it, because I had actually piggybacked off some friends who had been making topical analgesics for over 10 years, and they
Hmm.
were starting to get out. And I said, "Hey, this CBD is coming in. What can we do with this?" They're like, "Well, we can't do anything, but you can do something." And it kind of piqued my interest. I said, "Okay, well, if you guys can get me to the right people and help me, I'd be all for it." And the so we, everybody talks about the endocannabinoid system, and we
Hmm.
talk about the central nervous system, CB1 receptors, CB2 receptors, CB1 receptors as it appears to the central nervous system. CB2, we're talking more about the immune system. When they've done studies, and most of the studies, and this is where you kind of have to be careful of what you say and what you claim, because at the end of the day, CBD is still just a supplement. It's not a drug. And there's a lot of people who are getting in trouble right now with the FDA of claiming that CBD does X, Y, and Z. You really can't say that. It's not. It hasn't been proven in that way. And the biggest issue that faces that right now is that there is a prescription drug on the market called Epilodex, which is derived from CBD, and it's used in childhood epilepsy. So their problem with the FDA is having is that, okay, we've already given our credence to this drug. We can't really then go and say that we can make this a dietary supplement, and this is why you're seeing CBD in water, protein powder, gummies, all those type of things. The industry wants the FDA to come out and say that this will do X, Y, and Z, and the FDA won't do it because they've already given credence to Epilodex and its effects on childhood epilepsy. So what we know, and this has mainly been derived from studies in rats, but when we have an injury, our body naturally releases cannabinoids. And the body's natural reaction is that these cannabinoids go and they attack the area of inflammation. And the job is to help reduce the inflammation. The problem is that there are protein enzymes in the body that decrease the cannabinoids, and thus they're not allowed to have the desired effect that the body's trying to produce. So the idea with CBD, and essentially as a supplement, is to increase the amount of cannabinoids that are going into the system, that we can have a reduction on inflammation. Again, studies are more so done on lab rats than we have done on humans. But what I try to do, and what I attempted to do with my product, was I took all these other natural homeopathic remedies that we knew: eucalyptus, white willow bark, camphor, geranium, menthol, combined all those elements, and then basically almost kind of put that natural homeopathic and topical analgesic on steroids by injecting CBD isolate into it. And the reason I went isolate was because it is 0% THC. It's the most studied form of CBD because it is 100% pure CBD in its purest form.
Hmm.
And to me, that was something to where I could say, look, I believe in what my customers are telling me. I believe in what the research that I've done and what I've seen that CBD can do. But I'm not going to sit here and say it's going to do X, Y, and Z for you because simply I can't. And it's not right. It's not ethical. So I just have to go with the reactions that my consumers have had and what I've heard from other people who've taken CBD and have researched it properly, and those people who are out there and really trying to study the ingredient in its purest form and aren't just trying to open a marijuana dispensary for when it becomes legal in their specific locale. And that's more centered around the THC psychoadditive effect, which my product is not, because it's derived from hemp. It's not derived from marijuana. And that's
Right.
kind of a big difference that most people don't really understand. They see the flower, it looks like marijuana, it
Hmm.
sounds like marijuana, it's got to be marijuana. It's not marijuana, it's hemp. And that's a clear distinction that most people need to make sure that they make if they're going out and trying to source a CBD product, that they understand that it's hemp derived and not marijuana derived. Because if you're talking about two completely different terpenes, cannabinoids, and ingredients that could be in that product that you really don't know what's in it.
Right.
And that's why I went the isolate route, because I could control what was in my product. And that's ultimately what you want, is what you're putting out on the market.
Yeah. What many people don't understand is that we have recently discovered this cannabinoid system within the body. It's only roughly
Mhm.
20 years of
Yes.
understanding. So the
Late
research is,
80s. Yeah,
yeah,
late 80s, early 90s. Yeah.
exactly. So at one less, are you contributing to the research? Are you doing any type of trials at all to help to see or to help support the use of CBD oil?
That requires a lot of money. Uh, so, as a young company, what I tout on myself is that I completely self-funded this myself. I'm a bare bones entrepreneur. There's no venture capital. There's nobody over my shoulder telling me I have to do X, Y, and Z, which is something that was really important to me when you're producing a product and you want to make it what you want it to be.
Right.
Um, so I would love to be, I'd love to be in a placebo-based study, down the road, and to kind of see, especially on a topical analgesic side, using products without CBD. We could even take my product and at its core, without CBD, it has pain relieving properties in it. With the menthol, with the white willow bark, with the camphor and the geranium, all those elements have been around for years and have
Hmm.
proven to help reduce inflammation. So we could strip the CBD out. But what's cool is that we've done that before with some people, just for our own personal benefit, just to kind of see. And people have noticed a significant improvement on their inflammation reduction by adding the CBD isolate, which has been cool to see. But the nice thing was, when I got with the group of individuals who I kind of piggybacked off of, they had that relationship where I'm made in a licensed FDA co-packing facility. My product is pre-tested before it's even made, and it's post-tested after production. So I want to check it. It's an extra $800 to
Hmm.
check it a second time. That, to me, I put my seal, my stamp on it, that my product is safe, it's effective. I put it on my kids. My kids are 8, 5, and 3. I don't think twice about putting it on my kids for bruises, for bug bites, all those different types of inflammation. My kids have growing pains like any other kid, especially my 8-year-old. And I'll slap it on her without thinking twice, because I know what's in my product. And a lot of other people really can't say that because they didn't really know what they were getting into. And I don't think they were trying to mislead people. They just didn't know. They didn't really know all the steps that they needed to take. And I wouldn't have if I didn't have good advisement um, on my side, knowing people who had been in this for over a decade. Um, because it's everything. It's how it finishes, and how it absorbs, how it smells, and then by and large, does it work? People aren't going to buy it if it doesn't work, if they don't feel like they're getting a result. And that was just as important. Um,
That's one of the fundamental differences, isn't it?
yeah,
That you just have that characteristic in your company that comes from you,
yeah,
that you're just going to do it right.
yeah,
You're going to do it right. Yeah.
yeah.
How did you get involved in Cal Ripken, and do your kids play baseball too?
My oldest daughter, my 8-year-old, just started playing softball. I'm of the mindset of not to be that dad who tries to live vicariously through their kids.
Mm.
I had my career. Got to a Division I college level. My wife played softball through high school, and so I born and raised in Baltimore. Had all those connections before, but it was actually I interned with Nashville Sounds minor league baseball when I was getting my grad degree in sport administration, and one of my bosses ended up getting placed with a Ripken minor league affiliate, and that just kind of started the interview process. Knew I wanted to move back to Baltimore, home for a couple of years after I graduated, um, and just went through the interview process and was able to land a position with them and got to travel the country. Didn't make a lot of money, doesn't pay well, but the experiences were great. You get to work with your childhood idol for a couple of years. That was pretty cool. Got to go to 2 All-Star games and enjoy that experience. And also with that experience, you learn about how much pain these guys are in
Right.
after 10, 15, 20 plus year careers of getting beat up 162 games a year. So you see it. I mean, it's every day. It's inflammation is just kind of that enemy of all things that are derived in our body. I mean, I have ostomy patients who deal with Crohn's, colitis, um, that I've been working with for 10 plus years now. And just hearing all these people, everything seems to derive off that initial degree of inflammation that they had. And that was
Hmm.
just their body trying to tell them something's going on. It's not right. And there's not any amount of medicine that's going to fix it. But our instinct is just to take a pill, get the symptoms to go away, take another pill, get the symptoms to go away. Don't want to go to the doctor, more so out of fear, I think, because people don't want to know what might be wrong. We don't want to admit that there's a problem. So we're just going to self medicate. And
Hmm.
that's what leads to this path of addiction, leads to conditions getting worse. And that's been my biggest gripe with the COVID epidemic or pandemic, excuse me. And we're seeing it now is that all these cancer diagnoses and all these things that have been left to be undocumented and not treated, now it's getting treated at a stage 4 level when we could have caught it at a stage 1 or 2. It's just mind boggling to me that now we're seeing the other side of it, that people are told, don't go to the hospital, don't go see a doctor for 18 months. And we're seeing the effects of that now. The people have been not misdiagnosed, but haven't been diagnosed at all because they were afraid to go to the hospital. They were afraid of getting COVID. And I understand it. And COVID's real. We can go down that rabbit hole for, hours on end. I get that. But my issue with it was so many things went undocumented and untreated because people were afraid to go to the hospital. They're afraid to get seen. And, that's plays in large part to what, we're all about is trying to be active, be your own advocate, and do the things that allow your body to heal naturally, but also go out and seek the right type of help. Get yourself active, get yourself mobile, but go get yourself checked out. Make sure everything's okay. Because if you start using my product and the pain's still 9 out of 10, and no matter what you take, it's still a 9 out of 10, it's time to go to the doc and see what's going on.
Right. I don't know if you're aware of this. It's funny that you bring up a couple of points. One was we had a podcast where we talked about addiction for a little bit, right, Joe?
Right.
Yeah. So we talked about that. I don't know if you saw that podcast. I do
Hmm.
know. Oh, you did. Okay.
Yeah,
Brian
yeah,
did a great job.
yeah,
And it is especially when you're talking with those athletes, you don't realize how much people self medicate, especially with those painkillers. and then of course that's a slippery slope. It goes down
Sure,
that down that hole
sure.
of drug addiction. So, can you speak to any other mini miracles at all with your product?
Hmm.
Go ahead, speak to some.
Yeah, there's a this was kind of our aha moment because when we first made the product, we called it isotherm because we just didn't have a clue. You know, we had a product, we had a good formulation, but we just, you know, it's a lot of things when you build a consumer packaged good. It's the branding, it's all those things, and a lot of people nail the branding, but their product's not great,
Hmm.
or they have a great product, but their branding is not so good, so it just doesn't quite get out to the market. People don't know about it. Um, we just kind of bottled up our own little sample jars, and I had a pool of people to sample every single day. My store allows for walk-in traffic, so I mean, I get 30 or 40 people walking in my medical supply store every single day. So you just had tons of guinea pigs out there, and just said, "Hey, here's my card. Here's this product. Take it. You know, let me know what you think. No cost, no nothing. Just let me know, you know, what you think." And
You were just giving them the cream.
I was just giving them the cream. We just made, I think it was about, when you do a test batch, you could do about 5 or 6 gallons. And
Wow.
so you can make about a 2 ounce jar and you could just pump that out all day long. So
Huh.
we could just, I think we had about 300 jars that we were just handing out just to see if we really had something here. So it was no cost. I just handed them out to people left and right. And so it was actually the 2 year anniversary today. We took my 8 year old to get her ears pierced. And rather than take her to Claire's to let some 14-year old take a staple gun to her ear, we went to a licensed piercer and, you know, took her to this girl. Her name is Betty Ann. She has two of her own piercing studios here in Nashville. And I looked at her store and I was like, oh, this would be a really cool place to, you know, have the cream. And I started talking to her about it and said, hey, I have this product, you know, thinking this would be a nice place to kind of, you know, put it, see if people would, you know, take to it. She's like, you know, I'd be a little leery of them putting it in their piercing. So I don't think that would be, you know, a good fit. It's okay. But she's like, I would love to try it. I've tried so many CBD products before. It's like, great. So it's about 8 weeks passed and hadn't heard anything. And then I woke up one morning to this 2 page email from her telling me that she had been taking a leave every day for 2 years to the point where she had developed a peptic ulcer. And she
Hmm.
had so much pain in her neck and her shoulder. And you got to figure if somebody's piercing, there's a lot of crimping of the neck and, you know, pinching those nerves to the shoulder. And she said, I've been using your product now for 6 weeks. I no longer have to take a leave. And I've taken multiple CBD products before, and nothing comes close to this. And that was kind of that moment of, okay, maybe we are onto something here, that somebody had developed a peptic ulcer, you know, from taking that leave every single day. And now she's telling me that she doesn't have to do that anymore. Like, okay, perhaps we're, you know, we're onto something here. And she's still an advocate of the brand to this day. Um,
Oh, that's great. Is she
I had
selling
it.
in the store?
She doesn't. She's still very much a. She likes her store the way it is, and
Mm.
and I'm with her on that. I could see people. It's, you know, nothing that's supposed to go in an open wound. Um, but we're starting to get chiropractors, you know, jumping on board. Um, you know, massage therapists, you know, anybody who's into that homeopathic, you know, type of healing, medical supply stores, you know, those type of things. And it's, I want the right partners. Um, I could mass market this thing and put it in Kroger. I could put it in Publix. I could put it in Dick's Sporting Goods. I think the messaging gets lost if you just start getting it out to the wrong people, and
Mhm.
it's not being discussed with the consumer the right way.
Mm.
So I'm a small business guy. I think small business is the lifeblood of our economies, and I really look for those type of partners who have a relationship with their patients and their consumers and can really explain the product and see if it's a good fit for them. You know, and I try to provide samples to all those partners as often as I can so that they can give it to their consumers without the consumer having to, you know, pay $50, $60, to get our product, which is a good price point compared to the industry. It's a 4-ounce jar where most things are 2-ounce or 1.7 ounce for the same price point. And that was important to us too, because I do think it's an overpriced market. Again, you kind of take advantage of what people don't know. So people use that for, scalability. And I get that, to a point, but I think there's price gouging too. But I had another woman out in Sanford, Florida, in a cannabis journalist, had been researching our product and was going to write an article. She gave it to a friend of hers who gave it to her grandmother, and she refused prescription opioids from her doctor after her knee procedure.
Oh, wow.
Because she said that my product was helping her gain her flexibility in her knee, her CPM, physical therapy, the degree of motion that she was having was increasing drastically because of our product, and she was not in pain. And she was like,
what procedure was it? Do you know?
it was ACL repair.
Oh, for a grandmother?
But if you're talking about 60-year-old grandmother.
Okay.
And she, just lady out in Sanford, Florida, and she wrote an article about it. There's an article on our website kind of detailing that interaction. The journalist's name is Lydisha Watson. And, she's been a big proponent of it and looking to get products in her communities. And that's something I'm trying to figure out with different sizes and different product offerings, because I want my product to be accessible to all socioeconomic backgrounds. It's a very rural community there. It's not, a thriving economy. So there's not a lot of disposable income to spend on these products. So trying to figure that out too, of having different sizes and different product offerings, to make sure that anybody can access my product, is very important to me as well. So, we've had countless stories like that really keep you going.
Well, that's cool.
So
that's awesome. Speaking of small business, we're losing a lot of small business, and the big machine is like dragging a lot of people down.
Yep.
So, from a small business perspective, how do you get your material? Are you growing your own hemp, or are you buying it from an American farmer? Or are you getting it from Canada? What are you doing?
So, and that's the thing. A lot of people can source CBD overseas. I think right now, and this is probably 2 years ago when we were sourcing it, we actually got it from a lab, great young kid out of Yale, who makes me feel very, very unintelligent after I talk with him. But he runs a lab called Treehouse Biotech out of Longmont, Colorado, and we met him at a trade show. So all of our products are sourced domestically here in the U.S., and that's including labels, lids, and jars. Everything I did, I wanted to do it in the U.S. I didn't want anything coming from overseas. So our white willow bark, our camphor, our geranium, all those things, our hemp seed oil, everything comes domestically from the U.S. But you really want to find somebody who knows how to cultivate and knows extraction of CBD and how to do it well. And Treehouse Biotech out of Longmont, Colorado, those guys know what they're doing, and they can kind of create their own little formulas and whatever you want to do. They can pretty much do it. It's pretty cool. I think he's in his mid-20s. Kid's a genius. And said, I'm a biochemistry major. I can do a lot of things, but I want to cultivate hemp and make these formulas because I believe in what it can do. And he's done a hell of a job. So you have to find an extraction company, because I don't know enough to go out and do my own extraction and to really pull it and to make it a pure product. So you do pay for those things. So your costs run up a little bit, but if I know I'm not good at something, I'm going to leave it to the experts to do it. So I'm not going to go out there and try to save a buck and try to do my own extraction, because first of all, the equipment's insanely expensive, but I don't know what I'm doing. So I'm not going to touch that with a 10-foot pole. So, again, that comes with doing it right. There's some things you know how to do. There's some things you don't. And that's what I feel like, that's what makes economies go, is by pulling from all these sources and knowing what you know and knowing what you don't know and bringing all those people together to create a one-of-a-kind product. There's nobody out there who has my formula. And that's what I tout myself on. I don't make gummies. I don't make oils. I don't make tinctures. I don't do any of that stuff because I don't know enough about it. And I'm not fully bought into the ingestible CBD market yet because I just don't see the studies backing how much is actually absorbed in the body once it's ingested. That's why I went topical. 1, because of its efficacy. 2, because of its safety. And 3, because I feel like we're going directly to the source. You had to have that fatty acid and the hemp seed oils and the jojoba mix is that's kind of our proprietary blend that we came up with. So we had to have a carrier oil to actually get the CBD isolate into the body. And you'll hear a lot of people go, oh, CBD isolate. No, you got to have THC. You got to have the entourage effect. It doesn't work without the other terpenes and cannabinoids. And I just think that's garbage. I'll be honest. I mean, I could use more choice words for that. But to me, those are people who are more invested in medical marijuana and THC and the psychoadditive effects versus the actual healing power of CBD. They could care less about CBD, in my opinion. They care more about THC and marijuana. But it's not legal. So they say they're CBD enthusiasts when they're really not. They're more marijuana enthusiasts and THC enthusiasts. So let them have it. Let them say what they want to say. But, I do not subscribe to the entourage effect. I don't think it's nearly what people say it is. I think it's just a cop-out to try to get medical marijuana legalized. And now you're seeing that with Delta 8. Delta 8 is just kind of one step down from Delta 9. Well, now you're seeing a lot of people having negative effects especially on a vape side, to all these Delta 8 products that are out there. And it's starting to really cause harmful side effects to people. I'm like, well, where are you now when all the harmful side effects are? Now you don't hear people, as loudly as you did when they were talking about how great Delta 8 is. Well, now they've all kind of, hidden themselves away from the controversy. Well, that's awfully convenient for you.
So outside of inflammation and pain relief, what else would you utilize CBD oil for?
There's been a lot of people with anxiety, depression. As somebody who suffers, from depression and does take prescription meds for depression, I'm open and candid about that. I take Prestique every day, and I'm an advocate for it. I'm an advocate for finding a licensed psychiatrist who knows what they're doing, and seeing that person on a quarterly basis, which I see my guy every 90 days. And we do a check-in and we make sure that my dosage is correct and everything is where it should be. Again, I'm all in on the inflammation reduction properties of CBD. I can't, go to somebody and say, well, if you feel like you've had anxiety reduction or depression reduction because of CBD, I'm not going to sit here and say that that's not right. That's not correct. But hard for me to jump on board with that. Again, which is why I'm not really involved in the ingestible market, because I really just don't know what I don't know. And I can't dip my toe in that water, but I'm not going to tell somebody that they're wrong, that it's just a placebo effect, because if they're seeing reduction and their mood's improved or their social anxieties have decreased, keep doing what you're doing. I'm not going to tell you otherwise. That's not my job. That's not my role. I believe whatever you think works, whatever your regimen is, by all means, do that. But that's what you're seeing. You see a lot of people talking about anxiety, depression, inflammation reduction. What's cool about my product is I've seen some people have used it for eczema and other topical rashes. Like I said, using all my kids for bug bites, those type of things, bruising reduction. But I think we just got to be careful with what we say and what we feel like it's good for. For me, I think inflammation reduction and increasing the process of white blood cells, increasing those blood vessels, we don't have that pulling up or that balling effect, which really what causes pain, pain receptors. My goal is to keep things moving. And I feel like there's enough science out there to back up what we're trying to do on a topical sense. And that's why we just stick with the topical. If I get more evidence to back up the ingestibles, and I feel like it would be a good 1-2 punch, then I might dip my toe in that water. But until I see more, I'm just not going down that road.
Well, then how do you feel about using your product for chronic pain? Chronic pain, you can have acute flare-ups, and of course
Mm-hmm.
you can have the inflammatory process. But
Mm-hmm.
when it comes to pain, it's so subjective.
Yep.
If it's chronic, they may not have an active bout of inflammation. It may not be acute. How does your product work with that?
My goal with this product and what I feel like it does, when we talk about chronic pain, is that I feel like versus getting up every day and just reaching for the pill bottle and trying to reduce our pain that way, my goal is to choose a homeopathic way to reduce inflammation and then I feel like to reduce chronic pain is to keep the body moving, to keep the body active with diet and exercise. And I feel like when people get into a chronic pain state, they start to become sedentary and are not doing the things that helps with natural chronic pain relief, which is diet and exercise. And my product is what I feel like its best use is to get those joints and those muscles active, to get them firing, and to allow people to get out on the track, to walk a mile, to walk 2 miles, and get the body in a better state on a daily basis. And I feel like the best way to fight chronic pain is through proper diet and exercise. But if we're just constantly ingesting ibuprofen, acetaminophen, we know that we're having an adverse reaction. Yeah, we might feel better, but we're having so many negative side effects to our intestines and our colon and our digestive system that we're causing more problems than we're trying to fix. And we actually have a rheumatoid arthritis summit that's coming up on October 26th, which I'm speaking on for the Patterson program for RA Solutions. And he talks so much about diet and exercise as far as a way to help relieve rheumatoid arthritis. And he came up with a program that I fully buy into, that people getting away from dairy, getting away from processed sugars and carbs, having a more balanced diet. And our bodies have the ability to heal themselves, but we got to put them in position to do so. And that's where I feel like my product is useful. It's not going to repair cartilage. It's not going to put the disc back in place. It's not going to do those things. It'd be foolish of me to say so. So my whole goal is increased activity and just a better quality of life on a daily basis.
I see. So it works in synergy with nutrition and physical
Absolutely.
activity.
Absolutely.
Joe, as a former pothead, do you have anything to add to this at all?
That's kind of funny because I was going to ask him what the difference between hemp and marijuana was. Because I never knew. I knew that there was some difference in obviously hemp being legal, but where is that difference?
Well, it just became legal. Hemp was illegal for decades because of the war on drugs. Now it just became legal. What, 2 to 5 years ago or something like that?
The 2018 Farm Bill says CBD was a Schedule 1 narcotic. And so what the Farm Bill did, CBD, which is also known as cannabidiol, when you see CBD is what it stands for. So there's THC and there's cannabidiol. When you take the hemp plant and you're pulling CBD out, you are pulling pure CBD out of the hemp plant. When you are making marijuana, you have THC, other terpenes, other cannabinoids. You'll hear about CBG, CBN, all these other different cannabinoids. And this is where people are kind of getting so confused, because once CBD kind of got what people feel like is oversaturated in the market, then everybody wants to start pulling these other cannabinoids out. Well, forget about CBD. Now we're on to CBG, which is the mother of all cannabinoids. So we need to start pulling, don't worry about CBD anymore. Now we need to focus on CBG. We don't know enough about CBD to be going down that road. So it just became to me, more of a marketing ploy from these companies who were trying to kind of separate themselves from the herd and say, well, our product has CBG, which is better than CBD. Based on what? And that research there's not any scientific research to back that up. So really, when you're talking about hemp-derived CBD and marijuana-derived CBD, when you derive from marijuana, we're talking about THC and other cannabinoids that are present in that plant, versus a hemp plant is you're pulling pure CBD, or your goal is to extract pure CBD from that plant. Versus marijuana, there's all other types of growing processes to cultivate marijuana and to cultivate hemp are two completely different methods, and it's two completely different plants. But from the outside looking in, they look exactly the same. That's what trips people up, is that the synergy between the two plants it's pretty remarkable. From the naked eye, you don't know. And that's also the problem with this industry, is the legality is, as long as your product is 0.03% THC or less, then it's legal. If it's weighted THC that's in the product, then it's considered a legal product, and you can sell it based on the 2018 Farm Bill. That was it. So we didn't even talk about the extraction method or what else was in the product. We didn't talk about any of that. And that's what's led to products that are mislabeled, misrepresented, and people making products that really aren't what they say they are, because they don't know how. They just know that as long as it measures 0.03% weighted THC, then it's legal and they can sell it. But they're putting a product out there that people don't know what they're ingesting. And that's my issue with the ingestibles and with the oils and the full spectrum, broad spectrum CBDs. Is just there's too many other elements in there that we don't know enough about. I don't feel safe enough putting that product out on the market and allowing people to consume it. And that's just my personal opinion, on the matter.
Could you ever find yourself possibly going down that route if more information comes out?
It'd have to be pretty black and white as far as what's being produced. But it also just opens you up to a lot more scrutiny. And, on a federal level, even these places in Colorado, they're everywhere. There's nothing stopping the federal government from coming in there and shutting you down. Nothing. It's state legal, but it's not federally legal. But there's just kind of this unspoken, hey, we're not going to mess with you as long as you're doing it right and marketing your products correctly. And it's not, marijuana, or you're not, lacing it with certain things. But when even it comes to banking, like my bank is in Sewell, New Jersey. I can't get a bank account because my product has CBD in it. So there are like a handful of banks that will do business with you. But what your options are in trying to get credit or loans, forget it. You can't do it. You need to be cash liquid, cash funded to get into this business. And you better know what you're doing, because your cash flow that's your lifeblood. And if you don't have cash, you're not going to get credit unless you've been around for like a CBD MD or Green Roads. Those guys are huge. And now they have so much liquid capital that a bank is more willing to take them on because they're so well publicized. But for somebody who's starting out in this business, forget it. You are not going to get a loan. You're not going to, you better have the cash up front or it's just not going to be in the cards for you. And that's what makes it such a tough industry, because we can't market on Facebook. We can't buy ads. We can't buy ads on Instagram, Google. None of it doesn't exist. So your traditional startup and the way you would market a product, those options are really not available to you. And that's what makes it even that much harder to make it in this business, because there's so many things that people don't know until they actually get into it. And they're like, okay, I'm going to go open a bank account. Well, no, you're not. Because it's just not, it's not that easy. There was a lot of pain points in my 2-year journey to get from formulation to actual licensed business with a bank account and marketing and all those things. It's not for the faint of heart. Believe me, I've gone gray more so from this than my kids, because it's just that much more difficult to make it, because it's not the traditional means of opening a business.
I did not realize that there were so many barriers in that
Oh,
business. I
it's
had no idea.
ridiculous. It's ridiculous. As soon as you put CBD on your product,
Yeah.
then you have opened yourself up to more scrutiny and more headaches than you could possibly imagine. And it was very eye opening, for me. And there was a couple times I'm like, it's just ain't worth it. But once you get your product out there and once you keep your head down, figure out your way through it. And now Square, I will say, which is owned by Twitter, Square has really stepped out and become a big advocate for the CBD industry. That now all my banking, all my merchant processing, all that is done through Square. And yeah, I pay a little more, but when I know I have that big company behind me and they have vetted everyone, and I'll pay the extra money to know that my merchant account for my credit cards is going to be shut down tomorrow because the company that said they could process my credit cards didn't do their due diligence. And when they got audited, their money supply basically said, you can't do this anymore. People get shut down all the time. They'll be running their business. They'll have their online store, and they wake up the next morning and all of a sudden they can't process credit cards. It happens every day because they chose the wrong merchant processor. They chose the wrong financial institution. There are legalities that those financial institutions have to go through to make sure that they can do business with what they call high risk accounts. And that's why it's so difficult.
Now, there's a lot of research coming out that talks about the benefits of CBD, as well as, I will say, there is some evidence that discuss not necessarily THC, but the use of medical marijuana for like neurogenesis.
Yep.
Given that, is the market becoming more restrictive, or are things starting to like improve a little bit from your standpoint?
I think it's starting to open up. I really do. I think there was just a law passed in California for CBD for kind of a more dietary supplement legalization, which is kind of, I think, where the industry's trying to push regulation, because some of these people believe in dietary supplementation with the ingestibles, with gummies, with protein powders, with water, whatever it might be. Even sprinkling CBD isolate, onto your freaking cornflakes. I mean, people are doing whatever they can to absorb it in its purest form, which is fine. But I think you're starting to see more advocacy for it, because one of the great things about CBD is that you can't overdose on CBD.
Right.
You can swallow an entire jar of it, but you can overdose. You can have an internal bleed from ingesting an entire bottle of ibuprofen. You can, we know the ill effects of prescription opioids. That's well documented. So I do think we're starting to see more people coming to the forefront of, from a place of, versus making a buck, of, look what this has the ability to do. Look what we could help people come off of addiction. We can help people find a healthier way to deal with their inflammation. Let's find a way to bridge this gap between people who are just trying to make a buck and people who really believe in the power of the ingredient and open this up a little bit more, but we need regulation. And
Yeah.
the industry's craving it. The industry wants regulation. But again, go back to COVID, FDA and CDC and all those other government agencies had a little bit more to deal with over the past 18 months than to worry about CBD. So it really set the industry back about 2 years. I think there was a lot of progress being made, and then it had to be dialed back because there were more pressing issues than worrying about CBD legalization. But I think it's coming, and I think it's all for the better. And I'm all about regulation and having more stopgaps and things that you have to prove with your product to be able to put it out on the market. I think it's only beneficial for
Well,
everyone.
that's because you're so confident in your product, and that's a great thing to hear. We
Yeah,
need good actors and power these politicians, and it drives me nuts when I think about the fact that CBD oil was a Schedule One, a
exactly.
Schedule One.
Yeah,
That's what for people who don't understand this. Heroin and cocaine and all your
yeah,
narcotics, those are Schedule Ones,
right,
right?
right,
And you're not going to overdose from CBD. You're not going to die
right,
from CBD. There is no psychological effect,
right.
but but you can die from benzodiazepines and alcohol.
Hmm.
Yet they're completely legal, and people
Yep,
take them every day.
yep.
It's
Uh,
mad.
but
Crazy, crazy.
well, look at the vape. Look at vaping. Look
Yeah.
what that's done to the teenage population.
Oh, that's nuts. Yeah.
We've come out with cotton candy and bubble gum. You're trying to tell me that you weren't marketing that to young, impressionable teenagers?
An 8-year-old.
Correct.
Yeah. Who wants
That,
cotton candy bubble gum? An
right.
8-year-old wants cotton candy bubble gum.
So
Exactly.
now we have 12, 13, 14-year-olds with the lungs of 70-year-olds
That's right.
because the vaping industry was just allowed to run rampant, through society. But
Yeah.
CBD, now wait a minute, no CBD, no, we can't do that. But no, the vaping cartridges, yeah, sure, great. Put them on the shelves, let the kids take them. Yeah, they're fine.
Yeah.
Let's not worry about that. Yeah, it'll drive you crazy when you start thinking about what is regulated, what's not regulated, and it just comes down to whose hands in the pocket of which lobbyist or which politician. I mean, it's really, I don't even want to say maddening. It's sad, because the only people who get affected on a negative scale to me is our younger populations who are now so jaded, and have been cheated, out of products that could have saved them from becoming an addict, and it might have had a better future, simply because people wanted to pigeonhole a product into one regulatory body that it didn't belong in. And so, yeah, it's nuts. I,
Yeah.
I,
Yeah.
I
I understand.
yeah,
It drives me nuts, and I'll rant about this all day. I know
sure,
that, but
sure,
Joe, as far as your point of view, though, from the we talked with Brian about addiction and whatnot, and we keep talking
hmm
about how this helps with addiction. What's your
sure.
perspective on that? And then let's talk a little bit on how it actually helps with addiction outside of just improving like one's pain status.
Well, I think it depends on the really the desire of the person who's using. If we're talking about somebody who has gotten hooked on pills because they were having pain, then certainly this would be something to help them reduce that pain and get off. I mean, if it's somebody that got into pills because they like getting high, and pills are just another way to do that, um, then they may develop this idea that, well, I had pain and I take pills, and it's I think it's kind of more complicated, or maybe not more complicated, but it's a complicated kind of a issue to touch on. But like I said, I think the biggest difference is somebody that didn't previously use drugs, or have an alcohol issue, that then was injured and started taking medications, opioids. That person, I think, has a better chance at succeeding and getting off of that drug with a CBD product or a homeopathic product versus the addict who enjoyed the feeling that they got from a drug or alcohol, and is turned to pills, among other things.
But do you think that there's any resistance from addiction counselors or psychologists and psychiatrists or addicts themselves as far as taking, because like Matt was saying, so many people equate CBD oil with the THC and the terpenes and the other forms of the cannabinoids, and they usually do equate it with marijuana, and hemp is always in that group. So aside from that knowledge of, or not lack of, do you think that it's even being advocated for them, and therefore they're not even like sure that they could have it and it would help them with their addiction or even prevent an addiction?
I don't know. I don't know if something just as CBD topical, it would be persuaded against or argued against in that aspect. I have no idea what I'm sure that there are some that say, hey, listen, you shouldn't touch anything that comes from hemp or marijuana or from anywhere that is related to old habits. But I'm sure there's also some doctors that are like, hey, this is okay. This isn't the drug. You're not going to get a high effect from it. The concern would be whether or not it triggers them to say, hey, well, maybe since this was okay, their kind of addict mind could flip it and say, well, marijuana would be okay then. And if you just use it similar to the way this is being prescribed or recommended, then maybe that's okay. And then they slip into a relapse that way. But I don't know how the doctors or psychiatrists, psychologists, or people or addiction counselors are really um, suggesting or cautioning against using these.
Well, Matt, what do you think about all that? Are you having any resistance, or do you find that it's helpful? I mean, not just helpful to the addict, but I'm talking about people actually like advocating for the use of this to help addicts overcome what they need to overcome.
Sure. And I think Joe has fantastic points there, and it's from a physician standpoint, you have plenty of doctors, and I think it becomes more of a doctorate of research than a practicing physician um, who is out there, kind of touting the benefits because they're out there doing the research. When you're talking to maybe just a PCP doctor, who is prescribing pills for their patients, and they have that established relationship, and they know what they're taking, and they patient comes in and says, doc, what do you think about taking CBD? I don't think they're going to have a lot of answers. I think they're going to try to counsel their patient as to, well, here's everything else you're taking. We know you've had reactions to, X, Y, and Z in these particular prescription meds. So, you're somebody who tends to have a reaction. So I would probably advise against just ingesting something that's kind of on the consumer market that really hasn't been studied or given the seal of approval from an FDA, or a CDC. So I get that. What we've done, and I've had trouble because what I wanted to do for a long time was partner with. There's Young People in Recovery, which is a great organization which helps people who have kind of gone down that opioid abuse track, and they've come out on the other side from their addiction. And the goal of that organization is then to place people like that back into the workforce, and to give them a group that they can see and talk to every week for support to keep them from falling back into that addictive properties. But when I tried to get with the board and partner and say, hey, can we form a partnership, they won't touch it with a 10-foot pole.
Hmm.
And I get that, and,
Mhm.
and I got frustrated early on. And there's plenty of other organizations out there who are doing great work as far as advocating for getting people off prescription opioids and getting them off this track of addiction. And I don't feel any ill will towards those people, because I think it is a slippery slope, because there are so many bad actors in the industry that it makes it hard to kind of say, yep, one less CBD, we're going to put our stamp on them, and we know who they are and we stand by their product. So I think we're still so far away, which is why I have trouble when people bring out other cannabinoids and terpenes and those type of things and start touting the benefits, because we're still so far off from kind of coming together with Western medicine, because I say this on my website, I'm not at war with Western medicine. I feel like there is a time and place for prescription meds, and that they have their place, and that under the right advisement and counsel, there's been so many great advances with prescription medications. But there's also been the flip side of that, where just like the CBD industry, we have bad actors in medicine. There's been doctors who have been pinched and thrown in the slammer for, how many opioids they've prescribed over the years. So you see it in both industries. So it's kind of, who do you trust? Who can regulate?
Well, you're supposed to trust your doctor.
You're supposed to be able to.
You're supposed to trust him.
Yep, but there's been plenty of instances where that wasn't the case, unfortunately. So I think it comes down to common sense.
Well, I think you're right, though, in the sense that when physicians may not be abreast of the information, and how can they be? There's so much literature out there on everything.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, when we talk about people in general, their knee hurts or their shoulder hurts, or they get a cortisone injection, or they get some type of steroid like a prednisone, which is fine. But the realization of this is there's a reason why you can only get that every 3 months. It's destructive to the collagen. It can actually eat away at the collagen, which is not repairable. Or when you're taking those, like you said, those NSAIDs, which can wreak havoc to your GI system, or you take Tylenol, which can pollute your liver, or you take other like the benzodiazepines, or in your case the opiates, which can lead down to an addiction. The other thing that we need to talk about that we haven't mentioned is neuroinhibitors. I see lots of patients, and Joe, you have too, where they have a neurological issue. They have drop foot, or they're trying to walk from a spinal cord injury, and there's a lot of evidence that indicates the use of medical marijuana as well as CBD oil. I want to be able to separate those two, as opposed to gabapentin. Gabapentin is a neuroinhibitor, so it reduces your pain, but it quiets your nerve. It shuts it down. Why not address the pain with the CBD oil? Allow them to take a medical marijuana, like an edible, so that way when they're doing some rehabilitation, they're strengthening those neurological connections between the nerve and the motor unit, or however you want to put it, and then they can regain functionality again. So you're addressing with both. That's
Right.
my perspective. But this is a missing element in medicine from my perspective. Sorry for that little rant, but that's
No,
how I really feel about it.
no, and I feel like you would have a lot of agreement from the people in the CBD industry who are trying to do it correctly, and even the medical marijuana industry. I'm not against medical marijuana by any means. Myself, I feel like there is a group of patients and people who we need to explore all avenues. And I feel like sometimes those doctors just get set in their ways. Well, it's just like you go to your job every day. Do you give 110%, or do you give 40 or 50%? And I think doctors can kind of fall into kind of the blasé. I'm going to work today. Okay, here comes Miss Smith. She comes in every 3 months. She's complaining of this. All right, Miss Smith, we'll take this. Let's see how you feel 3 months down the road. That wasn't really counseling your patient. That was, okay, let's quiet her down for the next 3 months and get her feeling okay, so we can, I can buy myself another 3 months so she doesn't call me every day.
Possibly. I mean, possibly they're quieting it down. Maybe that's the best they can do that they know of, or maybe they are also hamstrung by the system that is, cutting that is being so restrictive to you. They're probably being restricted as well. So I think it's so many different elements, and unfortunately, it is unfortunate with the patient, because in the end,
That's the one
you
who
said
suffers.
this. That's exactly right. That's
Yep.
exactly the good people. Good people are the ones that suffer.
Mhm.
Can't say it any better than that. All right, we're gonna wind down here. I think we've done a pretty good job. What do you want? What message is there? A central message that you want to send to the listeners out there? And then also, if you would, provide your contact information for your
Yeah,
website or for whatever it is, so that way, if people are curious about your product, they can order for you from you.
yeah. Um, the website itself simply is www. All spelled out, one ONE less LESSCBD, Charlie Bravo David.com. All spelled out, one less CBD.com. And on our website, we really talk about our formulation and really break down all the natural ingredients that we put in our product. There's also a link to the third-party testing of our product from Botanicor, which is a licensed neutral third-party testing site. So there's actually a QR code on all of our jars that will take you to that certificate of analysis of our product. Shows you it doesn't contain THC, breaks down all the cannabinoids and all the properties that might be in our product. So it really shows our purity and that we are committed to transparency. We say that our jar is in fact in our jar. That's another thing is that concentration of milligrams in a lot of people's products are often missing the note. They may say they have 100 milligrams and it measures that maybe 800 or 1,000, but they're selling it as 1,500. We say 400 milligrams, which is 100 milligrams per fluid ounce. It is 400 milligrams every single time. And that's just as important to us as, making sure that we have the right ingredients, is that our concentration is true every single time, so that you have the same experience with our product every time you use it. I actually have an offer, which is onelesscbd.com / and we're just going to do Get It for your guys' podcast, which is a free travel size offer for free shipping and handling, which is $4.95. So for $4.95, you get a travel size jar of our product. We'll ship it out to you directly, and you can try our product for under $5 versus having to buy our product for $59, which I understand is an investment if you're going to buy something for the first time. So we wanted to be able to give people a good travel size jar, and a little bit goes a long way. So we feel like the 0.25 ounce jar that we send out really lasts people a week or two to really give them an idea of how the product is working and if it's really reducing their inflammation and their pain and giving them a little hope that they don't have to take so many pills to function every day. And I just think aside from that, my contact information is on our website. I encourage people to reach out to me and ask me as many questions as they possibly can about One Less and what we're about, what we're trying to do. I love the dialogue. I love the interaction. I enjoy speaking to people. And that's why I enjoy my job. My day job is medical supply. And my side job is One Less CBD. And I just get to talk to people every day. And that's what I enjoy doing most.
Okay, great. I think that's a good conversation. I'd like to have you back in down the road, and we can be a little less serious next time. But we'll talk more about baseball.
Yeah.
Were you at the World Series this year, or did you see it at all, or do anything with that?
No, I wasn't affiliated with that or anything. But it's I think it's going to be a good playoffs, and we're seeing some good pitching and some good play. So I think baseball is in a good place.
Yeah,
And
it is.
there's a lot of young talent coming up through the pipeline. It's some of these players and the Shohei Otanis of the world coming in to kind of revitalize Babe Ruth is creating that discussion now with these young kids of Babe Ruth and Lou Gehrig and Mantle and Mays and Hank Aaron and reintroducing those players back into these young kids and getting them to realize how long this game has stood the test of time, and we're getting this new crop of young talent. I think it's in a phenomenal space, and I'm really excited to see what the next decade brings for baseball.
It's a lot of fun. I'm gonna take this moment. I'm gonna brag a little bit, okay, Joe? So you can hold back. My this past World Series, my son was actually there. His team made it all the way, and he is ambidextrous. He throws with his right and his left.
Okay.
And oh yeah, they kind of like that. They've got to develop the right hand a little bit. He's right-handed, but prefers to throw with his left.
Okay.
And they were trying to set him up to do switch pitching in the World Series. but his right was just a little not as good.
Hmm.
So he had a blast. It was a great event. They did a
Hmm.
great job putting that on. So we're so grateful that we got to be a part of that. It was awesome.
No, Ripken baseball in that program, what they put out every year for youth baseball, it's first class all the way, and that's the thing with kids, and I think they get pushed in so many different directions. I think at those ages, it's more about the enthusiasm of the sport and less about the results, and that's where I am with my kids right now. I tell them every day I could care less if you score one goal or seven or zero. If you're out there and you're hustling and you're trying hard, but you come out with the biggest smile on your face,
Hmm.
then we've done our job, and you're experiencing what you're supposed to experience. Success and the stress of performance will come much later down the line. We'll worry about that then. Let's just enjoy it, for now.
Yeah, it was a ton of fun. So I shout out to those kids that made it to the World Series.
Hmm.
I think it was Virginia that won it. So team in Virginia. But anyway, we'll come to a close here. I guess I'll give our usual spiel. Joe, how about this? I'll do the association thing, and you can thank the people that inspired us. So we kind of split the task. What do you think?
Okay.
All right. So basically, we want to let everybody know that this is a free podcast. We want to provide free information to everybody out there. It doesn't matter what part of the lifespan they belong to, it doesn't matter what job they have. We want to provide a valuable resource to individuals to learn about the use of nutrition and physical medicine and helping them with their daily life, whether it's performance enhancement or just overcoming a common cold. And that's why we had Matt Parks on today, because he was able to discuss very well the use of CBD oil in his product, especially to help people overcome inflammation as well as pain, whether it be acute, subacute, or even chronic. So we're very grateful for having him on. But if we do have any donations that are made available to us through our Patreon link, we would really appreciate it. It keeps us going to provide the service. It also allows us to donate 25% of our proceeds to Cystic Fibrosis Association, the Muscular Dystrophy Association, and Spinal Muscular Atrophy Association. We like to just provide them with some more funds so that way they can garner more research and provide more medicine for those that suffer from those conditions. We appreciate your help. So thank you in advance. Joe, you go ahead.
Thanks, Ray. And the other half of our end of show to the end of the year is just to say thank you to the Podfathers that got us into this area and introduced us to this stream of information. Guys like Joe Rogan, Adam Meekins, Sam Harris, um, Mark Hyman, and the others who have took it upon themselves to just deliver information in the form of long conversations to sit down and go over and learn and be open to hearing things and kind of inspiring us to do the same thing, to bring information to anybody that wants to listen, that wants to learn, to really try to get as much out there as we can, because we know that the older streams of information have kind of started to get muddied up a little bit. So thank you to those guys. Did I miss anybody there, Ray?
No, I think you got everybody. I think we're good.